Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Caesar's Palace for 12 rounds of boxing. In the red corner, from Los Angeles, California, wearing the red trunks with the gold trim, weighing in at 125 pounds, the lightweight champion of the world, Danny Little Red Lopez. Well, Bill, our winners get a home theater receiver. That's right. Experience the full potential of high-definition video with this 72-channel digital home theater receiver from Yamaha. But wait, that's not all. They also get a 5.1-channel surround sound system from Mirage. With 5 palm-sized speakers and a compact subwoofer cube, the MX 5.1 brings you huge immersive sound with Mirage's omnipolar technology. All from the Spiegel catalog, Chicago, Illinois, 60609. And they're taking closer order as down the stretch they come. Mr. Hot Stuff has 3 lengths to make up with chocolate candy last. On the rail, take the points behind that gallant son with chocolate candy gaining on the outside. In the lead is Pioneer of the Nile being tackled by chocolate candy. They're neck and neck as they come to the wire. And Pioneer of the Nile holds off chocolate candy and wins the Santa Anita Derby. And now, on your feet, time to greet holder of 14 NBA titles, your home team, your Los Angeles Lakers. Number 3 at 6'8", 5th year out of UCLA, playing forward, Trevor Ariza. Starting at center, number 17 at 7 feet, 4th year out of St. Andrews High School, Andrew Bynum. And at guard, number 24, 6'6", 13th season out of Loyal Marion High School, Kobe Bryant.
Motherfucker, get up all up on you and mark you. Remember you little kid? You be fucking with little kids, you say, go on. Quit it. He mark you. Say the same shit you say. That shit make you kill a motherfucker be parking you, man. That shit get on your nerve, man. My wife be doing that shit, walk up on me. I said, get off me. You make me get off. You think I'm playing? You think I'm playing? I'm serious. Keep on. You keep on. Say something else. Motherfucker! Man! See, I felt something, that motherfucker there. I felt something. I said, Lord, you better talk to her. She put her shoulder on me, man. I tagged her. And it must have felt good because I bounced on it. You know what I mean?
Good morning. It's Monday, Moral Monday, December the 1st, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have Varney and Company, motivation, meditation, and moral politics. All that and more when I get back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you. Now the end of Maria, beginning of Varney and Company.
Something that marketing companies and firms that I've spoken to actually, it's fully known, and they've actually used it in political campaigns. I mean, it's a very deep-rooted thing that's already out there. So Oxford, in my mind, was actually a little late calling this the word of the year.
And also just divisive. Look, there's an easy solution to all this. Get off your phone. People spend too much time on their phone. They get too into these narratives because the algorithms are going to feed more and more of the same type of content, and you're not getting a really good worldview, like when you're talking to us this morning, of course. So I think that's the bigger solution here is people need to just get off social media, get out in the real world and talk to real people.
Yeah. And thank you for the show promotion. I appreciate it.
And one other thing, challenge everything. Everything you see, everything you hear and read, challenge it. Because like the Pete Hegseth story, we don't know if it's true or not. And I heard people on talk shows yesterday say, assuming it was true. That's wrong. Everyone should be very skeptical of everybody except for us.
Yeah,
I implicitly trust you.
Well, okay, so I want to interrupt here and say that she's right. Challenge everybody and everything, but even more than that, nonprofit news. The whole reason that all of this stuff is, you have ridiculous things being said and all this rage baiting is for money. Nonprofit news, and you'll reduce the amount of rage baiting that's going on. Back to the show.
Should I stop?
But the Washington Post, it's anonymous sources. But yet there are the reporters on Air Force One with the president last night peppering him with questions about it. And you've got people going on the Sunday shows like Senator Mark Kelly, Democrat, saying I want an investigation. It takes a life of its own, unfortunately. Liz Peek-Ryan-Payne, guys, thank you so much for being with me. It's great. I will see you all tomorrow. Varney and Company is up right now. Hey, Stuart, good morning, sir.
Hey, good morning, Cheryl. Good morning, everyone. We do this every Monday. First thing, we check out the markets to see how your money's doing. Wall Street calls it a retreat from risk assets today. Let's call it what it really is, and that is a sell-off. I'll start with Bitcoin, which is down sharply. It's at 85.9. That's your price right now. The selling in cryptos may be affecting selling in stocks because there's a lot of selling in stocks this Monday morning. Dow likely to be down 200 at the open. NASDAQ also down about 200 at the opening bell. Little change for interest rates. The 10-year right around. Actually, rates are moving up, and that's not great for stocks, especially tech stocks. 407 is the 10-year, and the 2-year up to 3.52%. Oil just below $60 a barrel, 59.03. I want you to look at gas. Right at exactly $3 even for regular. That's the national average, $3.
Okay, so I want to cut in here about this national average crap. Nobody pays average for gas. Nobody pays average for gas. They pay a specific price at a specific place and time. There's no national price for gasoline or anything else for that matter. Back to Stu.
Even. We're looking for a 2-handle very soon. As for gold, it's a 6-week high, $4,281 an ounce. Silver, the movement there is towards $57, almost $58 an ounce. Politics. Treasury Secretary Bessent wants to cut the flow of money from illegals in America to family or friends overseas. He also wants to cut illegals from federal tax benefits. He says illegals have no place in our financial system. Developments overseas. Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner plan to travel to Moscow for more talks about the Ukraine war. After talks in Florida, Secretary of State Rubio says, quote, there is much work to be done, and Putin continues mass drone attacks on Ukraine. President Trump has declared Venezuela's airspace is closed in its entirety, his words. As we've been saying for weeks, there is intense pressure on the dictator Maduro to leave office. We've also been saying for weeks, action is imminent. One more from overseas. The Swiss overwhelmingly rejected a wealth tax. New York City and California want wealth taxes. In Switzerland, 78% of voters said no, don't want it. Back home, the big spenders out in force on Black Friday, $11 billion spent online, up 9% from last year. Today, yes, it's Cyber Monday, and a 10% sales gain is expected. Consumers, especially the wealthy, are spending. Now, we're going to tell you about the astonishing corruption uncovered in Minnesota. 59 people convicted of stealing $1 billion from pandemic relief funds, Somali immigrants at the center of the scandal. Some of the money went to a terror group, Al-Shabaab. Authorities backed off from serious investigation. They didn't want to be accused of racism. It is Monday, December 1st, 2025.
And again, nonprofit news now. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now a little bit something from ABC News.
Christian Cordero reports on why the action was called into question.
Today, the White House is pushing back against a report alleging an order from Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth may have resulted in violation of international law. The Washington Post reports Hegseth ordered U.S. troops to kill everyone aboard a suspected drug smuggling boat that was traveling on international waters September 2nd. Details Hegseth denies as fabricated, insisting the strikes are lawful.
President Trump...
Okay, so he handled this wrong. What he should have gone after was the report, not the content of the report. Because when they say there's a report, that's an arbitrary claim. Okay, all they have to do is say, all Hegseth and the White House has to say is, there is no such report. And that's that. That's the end of it. Because there isn't. They're just, the news media left will lie, cheat, and steal to get their way. They will make things up. They will pretend they have sources when they don't. They will pretend that there are reports when there aren't. And the best way to challenge that is just simply say, there is no report. If you give validity to the report, now you're on the defensive. And now you're going to have to explain. And when you explain, you lose. So remember, they should have gone after the idea of the report and say, there is no such report. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, little John Kobylt.
It's 400 and about 450 emergency dispatch centers. They tried out this system on 23 of them, for starters. All 23 didn't work. So they were 0 for 23, and they still have another about 425 or so left that they didn't even try with. How could you screw this up? How could you? 7 freaking years. And then after the money's gone, do you have a comment? Oh, no comment. Call him. Here's a number. Call somebody. Just unbelievable incompetence. Newsom is at the center of like the absolute most incompetent, wasteful government that I've ever seen in my life. Have you ever seen another state this bad? Again, Alabama figured it out in 1968. That's just... Well, so that's one we're going to keep on top of. We're not going to be... we may get stonewalled with no comments, but the 911, that's like the bedrock of safety, right? Absolutely need 911. And they screwed it up. One of the most important conduits in safety, right? That's where you call the police who don't show up, and that's where you call the fire department that doesn't show up. I mean, what would have the Palisades done without a working 911 system back in January? Got to have that 911 system so that the police and the fire know where they're not going to show up. Like when you call about that homeless person banging on your door holding a machete, need that 911 so they can say, there's nothing we can do about it. It's 400.
So there he is again. He's preaching to the choir. He's talking about things that his people, the people of the First Church of John Kobylt, care about. He's not talking to the Democrats, the people that actually vote for Gavin Newsom and vote for Mayor Bass. He needs to stop and think about what it is that interests the Democrats. And it's not waste of money. It's not incompetence. You've got to get them on board, because without Democrats, you're going to get nothing done in this state. He can stay on top of this all he wants to, but if the only people he ever talks to is the people in the First Church of John Kobylt, nothing is ever going to get better. And he still hasn't figured it out. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now a little bit of motivation.
How many more nights of sleep you gonna lose running around complaining about your life?
Stop being a lazy, bum-ass person that's full of excuses, sitting around on the pity potty, coming up with every excuse in the world as to why you ain't winning. You are the reason you're not winning. You are the reason you look the way you look. You are the reason you're unemployed. You are the reason why your surroundings are so dysfunctional and negative. It's a choice. You have thought your way into a depression. You have thought your way into negativity and misery. It's all in the mind. Change your mind and it will change your life. It's time you get off the pity potty. Stop complaining about being out of shape when you never go to the gym. Stop looking at your stomach when you get out of the shower and your body and complaining about the way you look when you're eating everything in sight and never going to the gym. You just have to wake up. You just have to break that negative spirit. You have to break through all of that shit that you're carrying.
You want to improve? You want to get on a workout program or a clean diet or start a new business? You want to write a book or make a movie or build a house or a computer or an app? Where do you start? You start right here. When do you start? You start right now.
You gotta have the mentality to show up every day of your life, no matter what life throws at you. It's our responsibility to show up to the Coliseum of life, prepare for battle.
If you can get through to doing things that you hate to do, on the other side is greatness.
The savage mindset, when things are going bad, guess what they do? Quitting's out of the question. All they think about is how am I going to get through this? There's no quitting. It's just get through and thrive, not survive.
You gotta get comfortable being uncomfortable. Every day you have to do this shit. Because why? When you stop doing it, you don't just maintain it. If you stop shooting a gun, you're not going to be a great shot when you pick a gun up a year from now. The only way to keep from getting rusty is to constantly over that motherfucking machine. The machine exists. You got to keep challenging every day.
No one wants to grind. They just want the end result. You can't get the end result without the grind. But you gotta crave that end result so intensely that the work becomes irrelevant. But if you really want to set some goals and you're willing to do what it takes and sacrifice to put yourself around it and not worry about what everybody else is going to say, not worry about hurting feelings, you're guaranteed success in whatever you do.
And that was a little bit of motivation. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now a little bit of meditation.
And that was a little bit of meditation. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now we continue on with Chapter 22 of Moral Politics.
Is the message that a balanced budget amendment would send to Congress. There are three ways to interpret this invocation. Either be thrifty, or be stingy, or both. Liberals argue that the government should be thrifty, but not stingy. Conservatives argue, on the basis of strict father morality, that thriftiness in government is never stinginess, since cutting off government funding just makes people more self-disciplined and self-reliant, and so is good for them. The point is that such an invocation, which is a very real invocation, has two interpretations depending on framing. Moreover, the meaning of that framing depends on worldview, as we have seen throughout this book.
Okay, so he says he's basically creating another false dichotomy, suggesting that you can either be conservative or be frugal, but not both. Well, of course you can, because frugality is the hallmark of conservatism. Back to the book.
But strict father morality demands a view of the human mind in which such framing and worldview differences do not and cannot exist. Moral rules, in order to be moral rules, must be understandable in the same way to everybody. The very existence of different worldviews and different modes of framing shows that this is false. The human mind is such that framing differences and worldview differences really do exist. Not just here and there in minor ways, but on a truly massive scale. The prohibition, "don't murder babies," may or may not apply to taking a morning after pill, depending on whether a cluster of cells is framed as a baby and taking such a pill is framed as murder. Variability in meaning due to framing and worldview differences and to the properties of categories, fuzziness, radial structure, prototypes, creates such a huge meaning variability in normal, everyday human reasoning that the conditions needed for the strict father model to be coherent are just not met. Rewards and punishments. Such variability also occurs in the understandings of rewards and punishments. Anytime you specify a reward or a punishment, you use human categories that are subject to the same kinds of meaning variability. This means that rewards and punishments vary in their meaning. Remember the moral of Brer Rabbit. Being thrown into the briar patch, which would have been a punishment to others, was a reward to him. Daniel Kahneman, Amos Tversky, and a small army of co-workers have produced, over 2 decades, an enormous body of research. See references, section A5, detailing how people do not operate by folk behaviorism. That is, according to an objective characterization of what ought to be in their best interests. What ought to count as reward and punishment. Their experiments show in case after case that people just do not reason that way even when it matters a lot to them. Often, the source of that failure is due to the fact that people use other forms of reasoning that get in the way of a reward-punishment form of rationality. Prototype-based reasoning, alternate framings, worldview differences, which affect how categories of people and events are understood, and even affect judgments of simple probability. The fact is that people do not reason all the time, or even primarily, in terms of maximizing clear and unequivocal rewards and punishments. This fact undermines the principle of the morality of reward and punishment, on which strict father morality is based. If punishment isn't always understood as punishment, or if punishment is not usually the basis on which people act, then the whole strict father paradigm is undermined. Using punishment to exact obedience to authority and so build self-discipline and self-reliance won't work. And as we saw in the last chapter, it doesn't work in the case of child-rearing. Metaphorical thought. We have seen throughout this book that people conceptualize a great many things in terms of metaphor. Morality itself being one of those things. The fact is that conceptual metaphor exists on a large scale and that it plays an enormous role in moral thought. Take the moral principle that punishment for crimes should be fair. This requires the use of the metaphor of moral accounting, and it prompts different accounting schemes around the world. In America, we ask how big a fine or how long a time and what kind of jail is to count as a punishment. The metaphor well-being is wealth prompts us to try to find a common measure in terms of which we can balance the moral books. Balance one kind of harm, assault on well-being, in terms of another. The metaphor of moral accounting, being a metaphor, always requires further interpretation if we are to function in terms of it. And the fact that there are many kinds of possible interpretation means that the moral injunction that punishment be fair cannot be followed in just one way. It too has a multiplicity of possible interpretations. Such a multiplicity of interpretations for a moral injunction violates the need of strict father morality for a moral rule to have one absolute, universal, true for all times and circumstances, clear and unequivocal meaning. The very existence of conceptual metaphor makes strict father morality unworkable because it violates the possibility for absolute moral standards. Imperfect communication. As for perfect communication, it should be obvious that it simply doesn't work. The failure of perfect communication between liberals and conservatives should show that clearly. The fact of that failure is so prominent in cognitive science and linguistics that it has even become the subject of a best-selling self-help book. Deborah Tannen's You Just Don't Understand. Tannen, a former student in my department and now a distinguished professor at Georgetown University, is just one researcher in a field of thousands studying the nature of human discourse and its difficulties. See references A4. One of the principal results in this discipline is that different people have different principles of indirect speech. Some people are understaters, who say less when they mean more, stop short of the punchline, and let the hearer draw his own conclusion. Others are overstaters, who exaggerate and never miss a punchline, or stop short of a conclusion. Different people even have very different views of what constitutes polite conversation. For some people, politeness means being indirect, asking a question rather than making a direct request, for example. For others, politeness means directness, saying exactly what you mean, no more, no less. And once one gets into the details, the differences in conversational strategies get far more complex than this. Add to this all the meaning variation introduced by framing, worldview differences, metaphor, radial categories, fuzzy categories, and prototype-based reasoning, and you can see why communication is so very far from perfect. Thus, we can see that none of strict father morality's requirements for what the human mind must be are actually met by real human minds functioning in real discourses. Strict father morality is simply out of touch with real minds. Moral absolutism is not true because conceptual absolutism is not true. And moral training by enforcing obedience cannot work because people are not just simple reward-punishment machines. Relativism. Does the failure of moral absolutism mean total moral relativism? Not at all. No more than the failure of conceptual absolutism means total conceptual relativism. As we saw in our study of the metaphors for morality, those metaphors are not arbitrary or random. They are strongly constrained by what morality is fundamentally about, promoting human well-being. The basic forms of well-being, health, strength, wealth, and so on, constrain the possibilities for metaphors for morality. Even basic forms of parenting experience, strict father and nurturant parent, seem to provide a limited range of versions of the overall forms of moral systems. Research in cognitive science on the embodiment of mind shows that, despite enormous possibilities for variation, the variations are not unlimited and not random. They are constrained by various aspects of our biology and our experience, functioning in the physical and social world. For an in-depth discussion of why conceptual variation and change does not lead to anything like total relativism, see references A2, Lakoff, 1987, Chapter 18. Nurturant parenting and a nurturant society. Finally, we must take up one more question. Why does the existence of conceptual variation, imperfect communication, and the failure of folk behaviorism not lead to the same problems for nurturant parent morality? To see why, return for a moment to child rearing. In the nurturant parent model, constant communication, interaction, and discussion are crucial. As Barry Brazelton observes over and over in Touchpoints, one must always tell a child why you are doing what you are doing. Ask her opinion. Ask how she feels. Respect her feelings. Take her suggestions, while sticking to what you think needs to be done unless your child makes a better suggestion. This process requires constant communication and negotiation of meaning. It assumes that meanings will be different and that communication will be imperfect. It assumes that if you keep communicating, note communication failures, attribute respect and goodwill to both parties, and continue to communicate, you will get to the point where the differences in communication and the variations in meaning won't occur all that much, or matter all that much. What keeps the process of communication going is secure attachment, affection, and affectionate behavior, mutual respect, empathy, commitment, clarity of expectations, and trust. That does not apply just to child rearing. It can apply to human interactions in general. That is what overcomes meaning variations and imperfect communication. What takes the place of the strict rules of the strict father model is clarity of expectations and empathy. What takes the place of reward and punishment is interdependence, communication, and the true desire to remain affectionately connected to those you live with. Facing difficulties. But what happens when the people in your community either want to dominate you or feel no affectionate connections to you or to anyone else? The only answer to date has been to do everything you can to build a nurturant community and extend it more and more to others over time. That is difficult and takes a long time and a lot of commitment and a lot of communication. But the nurturance model in general is difficult to follow and just does take a long time and a lot of commitment and a lot of communication. As with child rearing, there are no easy alternatives, but the strict father model is no alternative at all. Again, as with creating a nurturant family life, it would be unreasonable to expect that creating a nurturant society should be easy or quick. One must be patient and ready to deal with frustration. And one must bear in mind the morality of happiness and self-nurturance. In the midst of frustration, you must find a way to be basically happy and to take care of yourself. If you don't, you will become less nurturant. Women have known throughout history that nurturance is a way of life. Many men have instinctively learned it from their mothers and their nurturant fathers. But the challenge in contemporary America is to create a nurturant society when a significant portion of that society has been raised either by authoritarian or neglectful parents. America is between moral worlds, and there is only one way to turn.
Okay, so all of this, his whole book is based on, and will continue to be based on, a false dichotomy. He is suggesting that there's only, you can either be a conservative or you could be a nurturant parent, but not both. And it's not true. It's simply false. Conservatives every day pick and choose. They size a situation up and decide whether or not they need to be strict or nurturant. And they do what is appropriate in that situation. So you don't have to choose. But that's the way this whole book is going to run. He's going to insist that you have to choose. Right now, we're about to go to another chapter, and he's going to spend that chapter telling us how being the nurturant parent, i.e. a liberal, is better than being a conservative. That the conservative way just doesn't work. And again, he's using a false dichotomy. The fact of the matter is that we can be a conservative and be a nurturant parent at the same time. Don't let your enemies trick you into a false dichotomy. Back in a minute. Thank you. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there, and reminding you that determinism is optional.